I want to talk about our growth and our evolutionary path as humans, because I know I've been talking about releasing and clearing and these big changes and shifts happening, and that has been happening, but it also will continue to happen. So there's a couple layers here. One is the mind can start expecting everything to be very big and like fireworks and shifts to be dramatic. And we might notice that over the next year or two in the collective. We might notice certain things that are more dramatic in our lives, more clarity of purpose or direction, where suddenly we really are changing our trajectory and we're taking actions and making decisions that are changing our trajectory based on things that have healed and old ways of being that we put away and new ways of being that we've stepped into. So that is all unfolding. But I want to speak to the aspect of life that is always unfolding, and things are often more subtle. Our guidance can be more subtle. The shifts and changes within us might have periods of being more obvious, and then other times it's unfolding in more subtle ways. Because we're creatures of habit, humans don't really like to change. So even though things are shifting and changing within us, we might be reluctant or slow to change our behaviors that are bringing those new parts of ourselves into form through actions in our life. And that's okay. So I wanted to speak to this because I think with all of there's so much amazing energy, right? And people are talking about it. And there is growth happening. There are shifts happening. There's transformation happening. And it's happening within us in different levels all the time. It's also happening in our friends and family and coworkers and the collective all the time. So we're seeing all of these things in humanity in all these different levels. But as someone who's been on their spiritual path for well over 30 years, there are periods of time where we might feel that we aren't seeing the change as much within ourselves or our lives as we'd want to or hope to. And that can get us stuck in some mental spinning of looking for things to be different than they are, which can then become a trap where we get stuck and we fall off of our path, or we come into some struggle, because part of wherever we are on our path is how can we be loving and gentle with ourselves with this unfolding? Because it doesn't have to be fireworks where the world changes overnight or our life dramatically changes or our identity or personality changes overnight. Those things, certainly things happen in some ways that seem like that. But for a majority of us, we're living our life, we're doing our work, and we're working through these energies on a regular basis with whatever our practices are. And it can be more subtle and less obvious with some of these changes. But I think it's important to acknowledge the changes. So sometimes it can be helpful to look back 5 years ago at yourself. Where were you then? What did you think, feel, and believe? Go back 10 years. Who were you then? What did you think, feel, believe? And that'll help give you some context for your growth trajectory and how what you've been doing has been making a difference over time in how you're viewing yourself and the world and letting go of fears or needing to control or being in woundedness or not having boundaries or all of these things. Now, I say that, but I also want to highlight that that doesn't mean you have to be perfect at all of those things, because we heal in layers. We heal incrementally. It's not all or nothing. So you might notice there have been these themes that are the same themes you've been working on for years and years. And part of that can be because our soul chooses certain things that our soul wants to experience, to learn. And that means we have to have experiences of good happening in those areas of our lives or those themes, and bad happening in those areas or themes, and growth and experimenting perhaps, or working through different versions of how am I approaching this. And so everyone's going to be different on what those themes might be in this lifetime. And then you might notice that over time, oh, I've really improved on having boundaries about this or that, or saying no when I wanted to, or I might be still seeing I need improvement with that, or it might be in certain relationships with a loved one. You might be working on not having codependency patterns, or you might be working on things with your family of origin, and how can you have more independence and not be tangled up in things where you're pleasing or doing what you're told based on authority in your family. Or it can be in collective. A lot of people are also working through what is their inner authority in relation to the world and society, and what are people willing or not willing to have someone else dictate has to be, whether it's in our lifestyle or our health choices, different things like that are all themes that are coming up. So one of the analogies that I was taught by one of my teachers, Memra Audrey Cole, was she talked about the spheres of growth. And I felt like that was a really helpful concept. So if you imagine yourself in your life right now, you have this sphere around you, and it's however far away from you. And within that, you're experiencing people, places, situations, um, those experiences and themes of where you are right now. So what does that mean? That means you'll have thoughts and feelings and beliefs that maybe have a certain limitation. So it's like a boundary of what are you embracing within yourself as your sovereignty and your freedom and your ability to express self-expression, to speak up, to have boundaries, to what are you having the courage and confidence to be exploring in your life versus potentially having fears or limitations or hiding, of pulling back and not allowing yourself to step into things that you would like to do. So whatever that definition is for you, is that's the certain sphere around you right now. That's where you're working. That's your school. So in that sphere, all of the people, places, things, what your thoughts, feelings, beliefs are at that time is kind of orienting what your life can or can't be. And that's what you're working through. And then, of course, we're not static. We are dynamic, and we are shifting and changing and growing all the time. And depending on what your practices are, and if you're actively working on certain things consciously, you might really be working on changing aspects that were holding you back in your beliefs or thoughts or feelings about certain things. And those topics or themes could be changing a lot. And that could be the focus of this sphere of growth, for example. And then we get to periods of time where we've worked out a lot of the things in that sphere. And then it's like that sphere there's a transition where that sphere then dissolves or pops away, and we have a different sphere that's just a little bigger than that, where we're allowed to express more of who we truly are, because part of why we're here is to come into knowing our inner being, our soul self, our divine self that is limitless and that is love, and that chose to come here with these veils of forgetting all of our empowerment and the love that we are. And then we have this wonderful brain and nervous system that is an interface with this world. And so that creates a lot of interesting experiences, um, relating to fear and fight or flight or freeze and fawning and all those things that are more nervous system regulation. And so you might be working through that, those themes of the nervous system, which are just another analogy for how wounds are, because a wounded belief or part of ourselves is going to, let's say, be most comfortable in maybe a fawning kind of behavior as far as the freeze, fight, fawn, um, flee scenario. So there, what I'm trying to say is we're always working on whatever lessons our soul came here to learn. And even if we complete certain lessons, there will be new lessons. And sometimes I like to kind of call it the flavor. The theme can be like a flavor, an overarching theme for many years, but the flavor of it or the focus of it shifts at different times. Oh, I've really gotten better on boundaries with this aspect of my life, but I'm still struggling with this aspect. Or because boundaries, it's all about energy. What am I choosing to interact with? What am I willing to have others be imposing their opinions or their preferences upon me? If I'm not having firmer boundaries, I might change myself for others. And a lot of people, including myself, over the years, I was not conscious that I was changing myself for other people. It's it's been part of the awakening process to recognize on my journey that, oh, I wasn't honoring who I was. And one of my strategies to get through life was to compromise myself with what I wanted. And I wasn't even consciously doing it when I was younger. It's just was a survival mode, right? And that's something that a lot of people might feel is something that they do sometimes. It's, getting along with other people or conforming to the group or wanting to fit in with a teenage clique or whatever the case may be. And as an adult, it's still happening with different social groups or different belief systems. It can happen with people identifying with different movements or politics or different things that way. There's nothing wrong with any of that as long as it's in alignment with your heart. So I guess one of my messages for today is to be gentle with yourself and to understand that you're on this continuum of growth all the time. And it's not going to end. It's just going to continue. Your growth journey, it's your God path, and you're walking it and you're stepping more into who you really are. So it's this becoming of your divine self, your true self, more integrated and expressing in the world in a more authentic way all the time through the letting go of the past, the wounds, the false beliefs and unfinished projects, the fears, the need to control other people or judge other people to feel safe, all of these things. So I wanted to introduce this concept of the sphere of growth because it is quite possible that in this energy of the solar flares and the eclipses and the new Chinese New Year and this conjunction tomorrow, February 20th, of Neptune and Saturn at the 0 degree point of Aries, which is starting this new cycle. It's this opportunity, but it will continue on and it will be unfolding over many years. And so it's not feeling like you're not doing something right. If you're not feeling, she's talking about this, but I'm not feeling this, don't worry, because all of us are very unique and different in how the energy is flowing with us and through us. And it depends on what your life themes and what you're working through and what your focus is on. And just there's so many different aspects of the energy right now. For example, yesterday I was feeling so emotional with many people. I was having conversations with strangers at this job I have, and multiple people, we were getting teary, and this gentleman was sharing with me some health concern he was having, and he said, "Oh, don't make me cry." And I was literally all teary and crying. I mean, my heart was very open. So also right now we're having a lot of water energy and a lot of emotional energy, and it's going to be continuing over the next month because we're moving into Pisces season. So you have all these different layers of energy, and it's not just in the cosmos, it's within us. So we might be working through specific things with our work or our family or a friend or a lover, or about our expression in the world, or about our boundaries. And we might have all of those things going simultaneously, but at certain times things come up and it's more the focus, right? That is life. And that is going to continue. And the trajectory, I just want to tell you, is up, right? We're moving more into the truth of who we are. And so it's being willing to become a new version. It's being willing to step into the new sphere when you feel those times are happening for you. Sometimes it might feel more obvious, other times it's very subtle. So one of the I was thinking how do we bring a daily practice in this energy? Pardon me. Because tomorrow, with the conjunction of Saturn and Neptune at 0 degrees of Aries, it's this beautiful union, right, of the spiritual and the physical. And it's this time of, in the highest levels, right, because there's shadow of all energies. There's the high version and the low version. And not that anything is better, because again, our soul is having experiences. So we might dabble in the quote unquote dark low version of something to have an experience, to grow and learn and recognize, oh, I don't want to do that again, or that choice led to that, and I'm going to make a new choice next time. But say for this Neptune energy in Aries, the shadow can be illusion, delusion, not having boundaries, being deceived, and that energy is always moving around us in various themes depending on placements and your birth chart and whatnot. But the more exalted ideas, concepts with the Neptune is like this heart-centered, love-centered, spirit-centered allowing of the truth of who you are to be expressing in the world with healthy boundaries, feeling like you are able to have your emotions in a regulated way, honoring them and not suppressing them. So it's this emotional energy, it's a spiritual energy, it's this divine connection, it's this heart energy. And it's very strong with the intuition and divine knowing and inner knowing. So to be able to look at what are these wonderful qualities of Neptune, the spiritual enlightenment, the spiritual knowing, the spiritual path. How do I want to anchor that in my world in a more real way? Because Saturn is structure, responsibility, more 3D reality of the physical world. Saturn can also be considered karma. Saturn can, can be considered more the taskmaster of structure, and what goes around comes around with that karma. Now you have to remember there's good karma and there's negative karma, and it's all consequences of our choices and actions. And so it's not, oh no, bad things only. It's also, you can have rewards from your good deeds and from having good intentions. So, but Saturn wants you to do concrete things and have structure and take responsibility for your life and yourself. And so these are both conjunct, which means they're together. And then you have this opportunity of both of these archetypal energies to be carried into your life in a conscious way, in an intentional way, as some type of daily practice of bringing the spiritual into your life in a concrete way. Now, there are so many practices and tools, and I want to keep it simple. So what feels like something really accessible that's really helpful is understanding that after you sleep every single night, your sleep is a reset. So you start the morning, and how you wake up in the morning and what you intend and what you think about as soon as you wake up in the morning is helping to set your intention for that day. And the way reality works actually is the day before is creating the next day and the energy. So the more you can really harness your mind to not allow it to go off the rails in fear and doubt and whatever the things are that are not what you want, then you will be over days of consistently setting your intention every morning and connecting in, building the life you want. Because the sleep is the reset. You wake up before you even get up in the morning. Put your hands on your heart. Close your eyes. Take some breaths. Feel your heartbeat. Say a prayer. Say an intention. And I would say, if you have things that you want to focus on, write those down. Do that, because that's something physical, structure, taking responsibility, more Saturnian, where you're writing down what you are choosing to focus on and you're setting your intention. But it's this infusion of your love, your heart, your divine intention, your soul self. And how can you anchor that in the physical? So that is a positive opportunity. And it's consistent daily practice. It's structured intention and choosing aligned action. So something simple to do, but that will launch and build momentum over time because it is helping you to focus your mind in your reality with bringing that heart-centered, spirit-centered energy in.